Hello, chickadees and cherubs and however else you might identify, tech helicopters, whatever. Thanks for joining us once again. Today we're dealing with a video featuring some rancid, toxic, poisonous sludge. And also there's some oil in this video as well. Yes, we're talking here about the terminally Dunning-Kruger suffering Nick Hebert. This is a boy without apparently any real qualifications of any kind or any experience of science whatsoever. A lot of people might remember Nick as being the individual, one of the many individuals actually, who lack the courage of his convictions and faith in his own abilities to actually front yours truly, myself, for a debate on any given topic, which we didn't even get to deciding what that would be. Basically, Nick ran away with excrement in his drawers, of course. And instead, he's undertaking a debate/discussion with Shawn Baker. And, well, it's wildly amusing, I think you'll find. So let's get on with that and see just how wildly amusing it was. Go ahead, Toxic Sludge.
I would just ignore pretty much anything that you've ever heard from any other vegan, because it's very unlikely that you've ever met another vegan like me.
Yes, I would agree with that, because there are very few people alive, Nicholas, who are as misguided, arrogant, stupid, and basically completely out of control with your ego as yourself. Very few people.
The natural world is filled with death and destruction, things I find morally problematic.
Right. Okay, well, so you don't get to make the decision about how the world is, how the universe is. It is what it is. Suck it up, buttercup. I happen to agree with Nick on that. There is a lot of suffering and horrific things going on in the world. You bet.
And I advocate for its non-existence.
Right. So to stop all the suffering and death, everything must end. Therefore, everyone must die. So to stop some of the animals dying for food, they all must die. That's much better. That's much more ethical. Well done, Nicholas. I think we're done with this debate. I think Nicholas has just hung himself right there before we even start. Incredible.
I also think that animal procreation is problematic. The
animal procreation is problematic. That, I think, Nicholas, is just your jealousy, frankly, of even dumb animals have the ability to find another dumb animal dumb enough to procreate with them or undertake the act, shall we say.
The end goal should be to ditch this ball because it's a liability in and of itself.
Well, obviously, this is going to be a great logic-filled discussion debate. Oh, my word. Go on, though.
All right, guys, welcome. We have a discussion/debate. We've got James, Aspie, and Nick, and correct me if I pronounce it wrong. Hebert, I think that's how you say it, but if I said it wrong, okay, good, I got it. If you guys just take a minute or two just to introduce yourselves, maybe start with James and then Nick, and then we'll just get going.
Yeah, I'm James. I've been a passionate vegan for 10 years, and I commonly try to advocate for a vegan lifestyle because I believe that it is an ethical lifestyle.
Okay, well, you're mistaken, James. I'm sorry about that. It's not. It's nothing of the sort. In fact, it's anti-humanist. It's unethical, in fact. Well, that's my opinion. It's just as valid as yours, isn't it, son? Is there any reason to take your position seriously? Let's hear it if there is.
The ethical lifestyle, I believe it leads to a lot less suffering, death, and rights violations.
Well, hang on. A couple of things here. Number one, no, a vegan diet does not lead to less death. It leads to more death, exponentially more death. In fact, James, so false there. And rights violations, you say? Have you looked up rights recently in a dictionary to see what a right is? And then explain to me how an animal can have any rights, frankly.
Which I think is extremely important. And I believe it is perfectly adequate to lead to a long, healthy life.
Well, you'd be wrong on that too, James.
Increasing the chances of leading a healthier life. And
okay, so a bunch of opinions, all of them based on theology, ideology, and falsehood. All of them demonstrably incorrect in fact. Right, so you've Are you going to actually offer anything of any value, James? I doubt it.
Increasing your chances of living longer, having less diseases.
Okay, well, that's false.
They're the main reason. Like the main reason why I'm vegan is for the animals, because I think.
Okay, so in that case, if you were for the animals, you'd immediately go 100% carnivore, because then you could live for the best part of a year off a single beast instead of tens to hundreds of thousands of animals dying for every single plate of food like slop you pour down your ridiculous gullet every single day, multiple times a day. You absolute steaming hypocrite.
It is unethical to breed animals into existence and holocaust them for.
Your vegan diet absolutely holocausts animals in vastly huger numbers than any animal husbandry program run by people. All of them put together, in fact, vastly hugely.
Ingredients or for nutrients that we can get elsewhere. So since I became aware,
Some of the nutrients we can't get from elsewhere.
of that, I've been passionately speaking about it online, doing different actions, things like that over the years. And today I am grateful for you having us on your podcast, Shawn. I'll be totally honest with you and say that what I've seen of yours online, it's confusing to me. And
That's because what Shawn is saying is actually cerebral. It's based in good science and common sense. And those are things that are ultimately always confusing to vegans. Logic and common sense. No surprise there.
very open to hearing you out today and hearing why we have such a differing of opinion about what is ethical and the correct diet to advocate for. Yours is the total opposite of mine. And
isn't that interesting?
There's obviously a massive disagreement there. So I would also say, to be honest with you, just to put it out on the table, and why I singled you out when I was trying to get a debate happening is because I struggle to understand where you're coming from, man, in the way that it just really seems like there's so much evidence, overwhelming evidence pointing against what you're saying.
No, there isn't, though, James. There absolutely is not. Perhaps you'd like to come and debate that with me. You want to debate, Sunshine? Let's have a debate. Any day of the week or twice on Sundays, and we will talk about evidence. You'll struggle to find someone who's more qualified to talk about what the evidence can and can't say than myself. If you really genuinely have the courage of your convictions, if you believe the claptrap that you're saying to be true and supportable with anything remotely resembling evidence, then why don't you come and talk to me about it, live on camera? You'd be more than welcome, and we'll put you straight.
You should eat a carnivore lifestyle. And it just leads me to believe that perhaps you're being dishonest with people, and that
says a vegan. Incredible, isn't it? The projection, kids.
That's why I singled you out more. Like, some people believe meat is healthy, whatever, and they promote the diet. Okay, but the way that you've gone about it, that just doesn't feel honest to me.
Well, so what? One of you is in error. And it's you, James, not Shawn.
And the way that you're telling people these things that just seem against what I believe and what I think.
Like, so it's against what you believe. Well, so what, James? You were just talking about evidence. Let's see your evidence. No evidence. I thought not.
It appears clear.
That's an opinion.
That's what I would like to understand. If you...
Well, come and talk to me, because I'm the one that you should talk to about evidence, son.
Where you're coming from, why you believe what you believe, where our differences of opinion lie, and I hope that you're not the dishonest person that I question whether you are or not.
Okay, stop insulting him for a start, and maybe you can get a dialogue going. Okay, I'm giving you some, precisely because of the way you're conducting yourself, son. You're totally out of line. Number one, you're speaking to an older person than yourself, and you should show respect. Number two, you're speaking to a vastly qualified medical professional in his field, which you are not one of. And number three, You're talking to someone with some common sense and basic comprehension of the reality of the universe around him. Not to mention that he's probably twice your size. And you're being really rude.
And that's about it.
And offensive.
Okay, thanks for that. And let's go on to Nick. Nick, if you'll just share a little bit about your background and I guess your position, just a brief position.
Yeah, so my name's Nick. I'm also an ethical vegan.
No, you're not. There's no such thing. That's an oxymoron, Nicholas.
Much of my position on the matter aligns with James. Me personally...
So you are also singly without common sense, scientific nous or competence, or even a grasp of the objective reality in which you find yourself. You just started this debate. Well, this video started with you saying probably the stupidest thing you're going to say, I would imagine, which is that the way to stop some of the animals dying to be eaten for food is to kill them all, because you advocate for the end of it. We're done. Go on, though, Nicholas. Bless.
I took human nutritional science in university.
Wow. You must be an expert then.
Wasn't able to finish the degree.
Oh, you weren't able to finish the degree. So you actually didn't even call it. That's what I thought. No qualifications at all. Good.
Yeah. Basically a blog about nutrition and...
Basically a bunch of rubbish, a bunch of theological claptrap dressed up as science from someone with no qualifications in science. It's hilarious. Oh, bless.
I try to raise the standard of discourse in the nutrition space.
Oh, the best way that you could actually do that, Nicholas, is to remain silent permanently. Keep your ideas to yourself. They're just rubbish. They're nonsense. It does not increase the quality of discourse.
I will do things like introduce formal logic.
You don't do any such thing, Nicholas. Formal logic is also an oxymoron.
Run formal internal critiques on opposing positions. I do a lot.
And you make every possible informal and formal logical fallacy in the book in so doing. It's incredible.
A lot of semantic analysis when I am critiquing people's positions in this domain.
On the basis of your absolute lack of any credence or qualifications to critique anybody in any way, Nicholas. Remember, you couldn't finish your degree. The first one.
So, yeah, my goal here is to just, in general, raise the standard of discourse.
Okay, well, shut your mouth then, Nicholas, and keep it shut permanently. That'll do that. Job's done. Good.
Because honestly, the meta is pretty trash and the standard of discourse is pretty trash. And yeah, that's all people really need to know about me.
All right. I guess from my position, I'm obviously my background is in orthopedic surgery. I'm not a nutritionist by training. However, I'm a clinician and I've dealt with taking care of people's health for many decades, 3 decades now. And so I have a profound desire to help people in their health journey. And as you can see, we have a community of people that all have benefited from this, and there are many other people in there. I do have a question for you guys on can you, I guess, individually just define what a vegan is, just so we know we're talking on the same page, because I think some people get different definitions. Some people think it's a diet. Some people think it's a lifestyle. Some people call it a cult or religion. But to you guys, what is veganism, or what does being a vegan actually mean to you? If you could define that, and maybe there's some consensus among you.
I could take that, James, if you want.
Please.
Yeah, I reject most standard definitions of veganism because I think...
You reject objective reality, Nicholas. That's the problem. Wow.
They analytically just lead to really weird places. And they're not places that I don't think any rational vegan would even sign off on.
Okay, you just said rational vegan. That's an oxymoron, son.
For example, if you look at the Vegan Society's definition of veganism,
who cares what their definition is?
Says that basically...
You asked for your definition, Nicholas. What is it?
The idea is that you don't exploit animals.
Well, that's false then for anyone that's eating a diet that's devoid of animal product, because they are therefore causally responsible personally and individually for the death of vastly more animals. Fact. We're done.
Implies that if we were to find sentient life that didn't belong to the kingdom of Animalia, it would be okay, or at least compatible with veganism, to exploit it. So for this reason, on an analytic basis, I reject that particular definition of veganism. I think the values that vegans tend to gravitate around are around equal treatment of sentient beings. The definition...
Who defines and decides what is and what is not sentient, and what even sentience is, Nicholas? Who? You? You can't even keep a grasp on objective reality for more than 3 seconds.
That I came up with to try to approximate what I think vegans are most likely valuing in most cases is this. Veganism is an applied ethical position that advocates for the equal trait-adjusted application of commonplace...
So gobbledygook, garbage, nonsense, and verbose rubbish, meaning absolutely nothing whatsoever. What a surprise.
Human rights, such as the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Human rights, Nicholas. A right is a legal standing to behave in a certain way or to expect that others don't behave in a certain way towards you. It is law of man applied to man. It does not apply to animals. Animals don't have rights.
To non-human sentient beings. What I mean by trait adjusted...
So all of them, because who is qualified to say what is and what is not sentient, or even what is sentience?
Is... we wouldn't give a pigeon the right to vote. And we wouldn't give somebody with the mental capacity...
I wouldn't give you the right to vote, Nicholas. Well, speak.
...of a pigeon the right to vote. That's what I mean by trait adjusted. Wherever, like...
Oh, right. So it's treating everybody equally so long as we take account for the differences. Oh, fuck me. Oh, Nicholas. Good. So, what have we got so far? Number 1, stop animal death and suffering, animals being killed for food by killing them all. Good. And what we do is treat everyone the same so long as we understand that they're all different. And pigeons aren't people. Good.
If you equalize the traits between two beings, whatever rights we deem them to have, we should regard them equally between humans and animals.
I think, Nicholas, you should play this last little bit back to yourself over and over and over again until you understand how stupid you sound. Wow.
All right,
or non-human sentient beings.
So obviously that's a sort of a complex definition that most people would not have heard before, but I get the gist of what you're saying. So if we have a crab who's only got certain capacities, obviously they're not going to be an architect or write poetry or anything like that.
But we should accept their right to be. Harks back to the original Monty Python, I want to be a woman sketch, doesn't it?
That, and we wouldn't expect that of them. I would assume that includes the right to life. All beings, you would say, have a right to life, right? Would that be a fair, as part of your trait adjusted?
That is what Nick is saying, but it's actually not correct, Shawn. They don't have any rights. Human beings have rights because we have collectively decided amongst ourselves in a way that we are able to communicate to one another as to what those rights are. They are human rights.
Sort of scenario.
I would extend the negative right to not have your life taken. Sure.
Okay, so it can't be killed.
Okay, so in that case, Nicholas, you better stop eating. Because either way, you are going to be causally responsible for the death of animals. If you choose a plant-based diet, then you're going to be responsible for vastly more animal deaths than you would be if you lived off the equivalent of a single beast in a year, for example. Okay, there's no way out of this ethical swamp that you've landed yourself in.
So,
okay, so not killed. Okay.
Yeah. So just to give you an example, vegans are fine eating plants.
Okay, so why is that okay?
Ostensibly, plants are not sentient.
How do you know, Nicholas? You couldn't even finish your first degree.
We're also fine taking people off of life support when they're brain dead, because ostensibly they're not sentient either, right? So we already do this in a lot of cases. All I'm saying is that we should extend this to a wider range of behaviors, a wider range of considerations.
Okay, so if there's evidence that there's no higher thought process going on, that would be a good reason to unplug and ostensibly to kill someone, Nicholas. Should we apply that to yourself, son, with your obvious lack of any kind of higher thought process going on at all, or anything remotely related to reality?
Do you think that most vegans hold your same position? Because, again, you're one individual. There are many millions of people on the planet that have adopted a vegan diet. Is that fair to say? Or maybe, James, you have a different take on this?
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what James says. But me in particular, when I approach vegans who espouse commonplace definitions of veganism and substitute my definition in its place and tell them the analytic problems with the other.
Let me guess, they respond by saying, fuck off, Nicholas. I would.
Definitions. They usually come around to my way of thinking because
probably just to shut you up, I imagine.
They're like, yeah, that is pretty much what my values are approximating. Because let's say we found a sentient plant, right? Let's say we found a plant that could suffer just as much as a cow. I don't think it would be vegan.
How do you know that any plants can't? They don't have a nervous system the same as animals, but there is certainly evidence that they have experience of the world in which they are. Is that a form of sentience, Nick? Who are you to say it isn't? I think you should stop eating anything plant or animal, Nick. I think that's unethical to eat. I think you should stop it.
To kill that plant. And I don't think many other vegans would actually sign off on, yeah, it would be vegan to kill that plant. So even though it's a plant and not an animal, I don't think it's compatible with veganism to kill it. So it seems prudent to me to come up with a definition that actually captures vegan values accurately, which is I don't think most commonplace definitions actually do.
Yeah, because there is evidence that plants have some level of perception of something. They communicate chemically. When a caterpillar is chewing on leaves, it sends signals. Other plants know it. It potentially is bothersome to them. To me, I don't really care. I think it's a silly argument. I don't care if I step on plants and kill plants. It doesn't bother me in the least bit. But if you extended that argument to what is sentience, and again, that becomes a sort of an interesting definition. But I just want to hear James's thought on what does it mean to you to be a vegan, just out of curiosity.
Sure. When I first went vegan, it was just a general feeling after seeing slaughter footage for one of the first times and learning that we can thrive without eating animal products.
Yeah, but we can't, James. That is a false claim.
So when I saw it, I felt this is wrong. And then I learned veganism is basically the practical path to living in alignment with your belief that the violation of these beings' rights.
They don't have rights, James.
Is immoral. But the actual definition of veganism that people use commonly, I agree, has flaws. And I agree with that now based on people like Nick who have a better background in logic.
No, he doesn't, James. You've been taken in by a Dunning-Kruger sufferer with not even the most fundamental grasp on the basic reality in which he finds himself.
Than perhaps the people who first coined the word vegan and created a definition with it. So these days, I would agree with something like what Nick just said, which is that animal rights are a logical extension of human rights.
Except they don't have rights. There are laws about what you can and can't do with regard to animal welfare, which are probably pretty reasonable, most of them. There are checks and balances in play. Absolutely. Sometimes animals are treated in a way that's not ideal. Sometimes animals are treated in a way which I personally find repugnant and unacceptable. But that doesn't mean that eating animals is wrong. It's not wrong. It's how we've evolved for the last 4.5 million years. It's how our bodies are absolutely molded by positive and negative selection pressures. We don't have a choice. You can't choose to do well and to thrive without eating animal products. It will not work long term, James. Mark my words. What's next?
Because they are similar beings. They are so similar to us that they deserve similar treatment.
Great logic. Goodness gracious. No logic there at all, is there? None. Nothing that you can actually get a finger hold on there.
And for them, they have interests that are similar to what we have. The interest in not being slaughtered, for example. So to protect their interests, we give them rights.
No, we don't. Still.
We give them those rights by law, for example.
No, we don't. Animal welfare laws are not about animal rights, because animals don't have rights. They are a reflection of the desire for humans to be evolved enough to behave humanely, under the begging the question fallacy that humane is a good thing necessarily, because humans are awful, James. Have you noticed? But what it means is we understand that we are ending these animals' lives for food. We understand that there is no choice, that we must do this. There is no need for us to cause unnecessary suffering to the animals before they are killed for food. So let's legislate behavior towards those animals, not because of their rights, but because of our own selfish desire to not be the bad guy. It's emotional. It's not logical. Logic has nothing to do with this at all, nor ethics, actually, really. This is about a selfish desire to absolve ourselves of the sin of eating animals. Okay?
That's what a right is, a protection of interests by law. And I think that is just a logical thing for us to do to other sentient beings. So my definition of veganism is basically about rights allocation more widespread to other species. And
so long as those species are similar to us. Other species can get fucked, is it, James? Okay, good logic, again.
In line with how sentient they are determines what rights they get.
Well, who determines how sentient the animal is? Still.
I'll say, okay, so there is some level of, I guess you'd call it speciesism, because, I mean, there is some level of, this is a snail, he only gets this amount of rights. This is a hamster, he gets more rights. This is a gorilla, he gets more rights. This is a human. Is that a fair assessment?
No,
that we are
I wouldn't call that speciesism, because
that would be devastating to you, Nicholas. That's why you wouldn't do that.
The thing that's determining the differential treatment is not indexed to species classification. It's indexed to
maybe sentientism. Would that be more?
If you want to call it sentientism, that's fine with me, because I don't think it's immoral to damage things or frustrate things that are not sentient.
But again, you're failing to understand, Nicholas, that sentience itself is a matter for debate. There is evidence that plants are sentient. So you just need to stop eating, Nicholas.
I don't even know what it would mean for that to be immoral.
Let me, obviously, and we can run all these hypotheticals, but if I'm driving down the road and there's a kid in the road on one side and there's a rabbit on the road on the other side, I'm going to run over the rabbit every single time, 100% of the time. So we make distinctions.
Right, so speciesism
between animals and humans.
These guys don't even get it that Shawn has already got them. They're fucked already. And they just don't understand. They're rabbits in the headlights. They think they've got a point. That's what's so funny here.
In certain situations. And James, you don't believe that your diet has no animal death involved in it. You believe that there's no animals that die when you consume whatever plant-based diet you consume. There's some. You would concede that. Both you would, I hope.
I would definitely concede that. I just don't see those deaths as rights violations.
Oh, right. Because if you did, rightly so, apply a steady and stable definition and an ethical standpoint, that would mean that you'd be left with eating nothing. Just like Nicholas. All right, good logic. I think we're done, really, honestly. And we're not even a quarter of the way through this thing. Shawn Baker's got you. There's no way out of this.
And that's what's important to me. There are human deaths in the transport and different parts of the system as well that accidentally happened, that I also wouldn't see those as rights violations. I don't think.
Right. Yeah. So accidental death. Yeah. Accidental death. We do a lot of it intentionally. If we look at pesticide usage in the United States, we kill 4 quadrillion insects a year alone. That's a lot. That is done 100% intentionally via pesticide. So that is an intentional death. There are plenty of animals that are culled to prevent them eating crops. We use explosives. We shoot them. We sometimes burn areas. We have entire ecosystems that are wiped out intentionally so that we can plant soybeans and corn and tomatoes and strawberries and all that stuff. And I know you guys say there's grains that are fed to cattle, which is true. So we know that there is intentional death in pretty much any dietary pattern that any reasonable human can actually adopt it. You live in the jungles of Costa Rica and you pick your own fruit. Maybe you can minimize that to a degree. But if you eat any sort of modern diet today, it's going to involve a lot of death. And obviously, I don't think insects are as valuable as a cow. I agree. I think I don't really care about insects dying that much. Ultimately, when you kill insects, then birds die. And there's obviously some upscale things that occur with that. So we know that all of us are causing, whether we want to believe
it's the circle of life, the circle of life. Carry on, Shawn, sorry.
Or not intentional.
No singing.
Death to these animals. So or am I off base on that? Do you believe there's no intentional death in this stuff?
Oh, I believe there's plenty of intentional death. I think most of the deaths in agriculture are intentional. But I also think those intentional deaths with respect to plant agriculture are compatible with veganism.
But they're not, though, Nicholas. You're stating that you believe it is doesn't make it so.
Why is that? Why are we okay slaughtering, if you want to use that word, quadrillions of insects and how many, probably millions, if not billions of small other creatures? Why is that compatible?
Just go back to my definition, right? So I advocate for the trade-adjusted equal treatment of humans and animals.
So you advocate for what suits you, Nicholas, without any basis actually to ethics whatsoever or logic of any kind. You're an idiot. Still,
in the case where we have quadrillions and quadrillions of tiny little beings with just, let's say that they were quadrillions and quadrillions of little people that were accosting our crops and actually posing a threat to our economy and our way of life. And it would be an existential threat if we did nothing about it.
Yeah, but you advocate for the end of existence, Nicholas, remember?
So there's quadrillions of these little humans and they're buzzing around and they keep eating our crops. I think even in that case, we'd be okay killing them.
Oh, awesome. I don't need to say anything.
I'd be okay with killing them. Killing those animals is compatible with veganism.
No, it isn't, Nicholas. Wrong again.
By definition.
By your definition, which is your definition, which holds no authority or standing of any kind. Neither is it based on logic or reality.
Interesting. James, is that okay with you, James? Is that something you'd say it's okay to kill little bitty humans if they're eating their crops too?
Because, it's defending your property and defending your life and everyone in your civilization.
But what if they don't understand that they're breaching your rights that you believe you've got, James?
What is your alternative? I would love it if there was...
Exactly. What is the alternative? There you go, James. So in that case, shut up and eat meat, son, because you don't have an alternative. You have to eat meat and animal fat to have the most optimal health span and lifespan, it seems. There is no choice. So you just get on with it. You cannot avoid killing animals. In fact, the vegan diet kills vastly more animals. We know this. Vastly more. How do you guys not see the problem here? How do you not see that you guys are done, finished, before you even, we haven't even really got started here. And you guys have got nothing.
That wasn't a necessary part of our survival, but as you said.
Yeah, eating meat is a necessary part of our survival.
It is. So, go ahead.
I would even add to that. They don't have
go on, Nicholas, make it worse.
To be trade adjusted to that of an insect in order to sign off on this. If they were like full-fledged human beings, but they were constantly accosting our crops and causing existential threats to our civilization, I think we'd be okay with killing them too.
All right, so war is okay. So long as there's something at stake in your belief structure. because that might be their territory. You might have planted your crops on their territory that they might have decided they have the right to own by their societal rules. In fact, you're now the aggressive invader, Nicholas, and you're saying that's okay because your life depends on it. Well, then just shut up and eat meat because your life depends on it.
Like, let's say a neighboring country was like, okay, we're just going to attack your food supply. Yeah, we would retaliate. So even if they were fully fledged human beings, we would be okay with this. We don't need to trade adjust in this case.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I should have said this at the beginning. I have to leave at 10 o'clock. I have meetings and consultations I have to do, so we're limited on how much time we have, unfortunately. And this could be quite an interesting. One of the things I've heard a lot of vegans say, not necessarily you guys, but a lot of vegans say, hey, it's about just causing the least suffering you can, making conscious decisions to decrease the overall amount of suffering. Yes, some animals die. Yes, insects die, but I'm doing my best to minimize that. Is that not a fair thought or definition?
Before we go to that, Shawn, can I just ask you, what do you think of that answer that you were just given on the crop deaths? Does that make logical sense to you? If it was,
to me, I don't mind killing crops for us to feed ourselves. It makes
even if
sense.
it was humans, like, would you? Well, if there was humans attacking your crop over and over and over again, what are you going to do?
Yeah, like if you're at war, obviously there's war. I've been to war. I've seen the horrors.
If you're at war.
There you go. Shawn Baker has been to war, son. How dare you question him?
No, but at war, somebody
attacking your crop.
But that's a war, act of war, in my opinion.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, there's reasons to kill humans. There's reason to kill animals. There's reason to kill insects.
To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season. Turn, turn, turn.
Are reasons. If push came to shove and I was crashed on a plane in the Argentinian in the Andes, I'd eat other people. That's the way it is. And I think everyone, if you guys were stranded on a desert island, you would eat lizards. You do whatever you need to survive. We would all agree with that. Now the question is, do you need to do this to survive? And then where do you draw the line of what you accept now?
Would you just say that we're not illogical there? Like, we're not being hypocrites there? Because a lot of people say, crop.
There is no logic whatever inherent anywhere in your ridiculous, ideological, theological claptrap, all of you members of the Church of Anorexia Vegana. None of you have the first clue on how to apply logic, common sense, or reason in its actual extant utility in the universe, the one in which we actually find ourselves. You are all completely off your heads thinking that you even have the first grasp of what logic is. Okay?
Yes, vegans are hypocrites. Would you agree that we have a consistent position there?
I from my perspective, I don't really care about the crop diets that much. Personally, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense to me. But then you hear a lot of vegans will say, I have no guilt on my plate. And they're like, I'm having a guilt-free meal. There's no death on my plate. And I look at that and I say, wait a minute, but yeah, there are deaths there. And so to ignore that, at least you guys recognize that, yes, I'm causing death by eating, by existing. And when you look at, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of people that I hear that are vegans are saying, I'm doing my very best to minimize suffering. And I'll look at a guy like you, James. You lift weights. You're in shape. You exercise. So do I. It takes more food to do that. There's no doubt about it. The only way you're going to have muscle is if you eat more. If you eat more, there's more deaths. And so how do you, as a vegan, sort of say, I want to be stronger. I want to be a better athlete. I want to have a little more muscle, but I know I have to eat more. And if I eat more, there are more animals that are dying. Why not just
wait? What's the argument for that?
What's the argument for that? What's
the argument that there are more animals
because you're eating more food?
Jesus Christ, Nicholas! Nicholas can't understand how eating more food equates to more animals dying. Nicholas of the logic. Sir Nicholas, who bravely ran away. Brave, 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 brave Sir Nicholas. When Baldy raised his pretty head, he bravely turned his tail and fled. Brave, 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 brave Sir Nicholas. No singing.
Because you're eating more Food production,
but like
right,
the counterfactual is that we don't have crops, so there's animals dying on wild land too. So what's the argument that the total amount of deaths is going up by eating more food?
Oh my God. The volume of food consumed is higher. Therefore, either way, whether it's plant or animal material, that would equate to more animals dying. Nicholas, still.
If you look at the way food is raised, if you go to a natural landscape, there's birds, there's bees, there's butterflies.
And there's tons of death.
There's tons of death. But when you go to a monocrop, which most of our food is produced in, it is complete and utter destruction. It is absolutely desolation. There's nothing that lives outside of that monocrop. So the number of deaths is, by almost without argument, is going to be greater.
That's an empirical claim. I'd like to see some evidence for that.
How about its basic common sense and logic, you silly little boy? Or you could go and look it up and see the facts, if you actually looked objectively for actual facts.
You can show over an equivalent area of landscape where we plant monocrops and we provide pesticides for 4 quadrillion deaths a year in the United States alone over our crops. If you can show that there's the same there, and then again, it's intentional versus unintentional. I guess intentional, human intentional, where we're the ones killing it. Whereas if a bear eats a deer, is that human intent?
So all we need to do here is just demonstrate that there's more animal death on cropland as opposed to wild land that those crops would be occupying. And then the argument goes through. But without those empirics, I just see no reason to.
Yeah, but basic sense and logic still, Nicholas, provides the absolute inescapable conclusion that has to be the case. If you can't see that, nobody can help you, son.
But what about the empirics of there are more deaths in a wild versus an animal agricultural system? In the United States, 30 million head of cattle are slaughtered every year. I'd say there are way more wild animal deaths across all species than that alone. Just if you eat cows, it's the same argument, right?
And I advocate for displacing the wild world into non-existence.
Right. So your answer to a proportion of the animals dying to feed other animals, in this case humans specifically, your answer to that is to kill all of them. That's much more ethical still, isn't it?
Right. Like I think the natural world is actually morally problematic, and I advocate for its non-existence.
So it's morally problematic for things to die. So the answer is everything dies. Good logic, Nick.
So wait.
Well done, Shawn. What?
Can you expand upon that? What does that mean? You advocate for getting rid of the natural world, and we live in a...
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. The natural world is filled with death and destruction, things I find morally problematic.
So kill them all.
So
why wouldn't I?
What would you replace that with?
Human infrastructure.
Oh my God, that's much better, is it?
Human infrastructure, and you're saying we would do a better job as humans.
Yeah, I would even go so far as I think the end goal should be to ditch this ball because it's a liability in and of itself.
What the hell does that even mean, you silly boy? And if we do ditch this ball and fly off to another ball somewhere, what makes that ball better than this one? Or different from this one? Is it in a different universe? Is there a different reality over there? Will we not still have to kill plants and animals so that we might live? Seriously.
But a lot of people...
Oh, yeah. Brave, 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 brave Sir Nicholas. When logic raised its ugly head, he bravely turned his tail and completely ignored it.
I find that problematic.
It's fine. People are free to think that I have a weird position here.
But we don't think you have a weird position, Nicholas. We think you're an imbecile. We think you're a very, very serious sufferer of Dunning-Kruger, Mr. No qualifications at all, Mr. No grasp of reality or logic, let alone a formal view on it worth hearing.
Doesn't really concern me, though.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Let me...
Well, just on that, Shawn.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something new?
Oh, no, I'm good.
He's already been saying plenty.
Just on that, Shawn, like, do you see where he's coming from there? I haven't given this.
I can see his argument. I would disagree with that pretty. I don't think,
disagree that if you make human infrastructure over where there is usually a huge amount of suffering and death and rights violations.
There are no rights violations against animals still.
Most likely this uses that.
So I guess if we're calling a rights violation a lion eating a zebra, would that fall into your definition of a rights violation?
On my definition, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Obviously, that is a position.
So hang on. If neither the lion nor the zebra understand that that's a right because they can't have that communicated to them, how does the lion know that it's breaching the rights of the zebra? Especially considering the zebra has no sense that it has any such right because it doesn't. Nature has evolved in such a way as that the lion will hunt the zebra. The zebra will attempt not to be predated. It's an arms race between not being predated and being predated. The predation of a number of the zebras makes the remaining zebras all the stronger in the natural balance of things.
Disagree?
I would disagree. But
what do you think the animal being eaten would think?
It wouldn't think anything at all, probably.
I wouldn't like to be eaten.
Do they feel like their rights are being violated?
Yes, I think they're being murdered. They're being killed. Well, not murdered. They're being killed. Right. Yeah, the animal, it doesn't. But what about the animal that starves to death? What about the animal that needs to eat? Should we violate their rights so they don't get to eat and they die anyway? Is that any better?
For some animals, yeah, absolutely. But I also
so speciesism again.
think that like animal procreation is problematic.
What does that even mean, you doofus?
Non-human animal procreation is problematic. I don't even advocate for most animals to exist.
Well, how can you call yourself a vegan then, you turd?
To begin with.
Okay, interesting.
Like I was going to say this earlier, you keep on referencing things that you've heard other vegans say. I would just like ignore pretty much anything that you've ever heard from any other vegan because it's very unlikely that you've ever met another vegan like me.
There are no other vegans like you, Nicholas. You are not a vegan.
Well, okay, that's fair enough. And James, maybe you're 100% aligned with that. But again, most vegans on the planet, I think they wouldn't want all wildlife to disappear, and maybe they would. I don't know. I haven't heard that before, but that's interesting. Let me ask you, because I'm thinking about this conventional definition, James, would it make sense to you?
I mean, Nicholas can't even conceive of the idea that without animal intervention, his precious plant diet could not exist. And he would just as surely die because there'd be nothing to eat.
To say that less suffering is better. If we could do something that would lead to less suffering, would that be better?
It would depend on what it was.
It would depend on what it was. Okay. So
if less suffering.
Well,
if it's an all else equal scenario, of course, less suffering is better.
Okay. So let's just say, for instance, let's just specifically.
Yeah, but that means nothing because there won't be an all else equal situation. It's a hypothetical thing that cannot exist in the reality in which we find ourselves.
Talk about animal agriculture. You guys find it abhorrent. I think it's necessary. But let's just say that.
Wait, what do you mean by necessary?
What part of necessary don't you understand, Nicholas?
It's necessary for me to get nutrition, for me to be adequately nourished in a way that I want to live. And I think that's
the word necessary, I don't know what it's doing there because
it's not doing anything, Nicholas, except communicating a pretty simple concept, which is not up for you to accept or otherwise. It's a fact. It's necessary.
Clearly, there are alternatives, right?
No, there aren't.
One way or the other, I got to eat the animal. So if we want to raise them domestically, or if I want to hunt them in the wild.
Phrases like gotta, necessary, I don't know what work these are doing in the proposition that you just said.
They are explaining to you, Nicholas, that there isn't a choice. We must eat animals to live well and to our genetically determined maximum lifespan, if that's the goal, which it should be. Ergo, to make that work with the number of people that are around, we have to cultivate animals in an animal agriculture sense. It's the only way of achieving it. If you can find a better way of achieving that, instead of pontificating on so-called pseudo-logic, perhaps you should do that. That might be worth something to somebody at some point. In the meantime, you offer nothing of any value to anyone except grist for our humour mill, because you are the most hilarious turd I think I've come across. The most ridiculous, farcical turd I've come across.
For me to be in a position that I want to be in. Again, it's obviously dependent on me, but let me just make the point I was going to make. If we look at, let's say, and you guys probably find it abhorrent, in the United States, we kill 9 billion chickens, 30 million head of cattle, millions and millions of sheep and pigs, and hundreds and hundreds of billions of fish, right? This is to support the population. You guys find those numbers abhorrent, I'm sure. If you divide that out over a population, right? The average American eats something like 27 chickens and like 150 fish, and if we count like shellfish and things like that, and about not even a tenth of a cow, because a cow produces about 500 pounds of meat. The average American eats about 50 pounds. So in total, the statistics on this show the average American eats something around 200 animals a year. That's what the average American eats. I eat a carnivore diet. Probably 99% of my calories come from beef. I end up eating
calories, goodness gracious,
about 2 animals a year, right? So am I actually better than the average omnivore because I only cause a direct death of 2 animals versus the 175, 200 that the average person? Is that a fair assessment, or would you say that's wrong as well?
I don't even think it's empirically accurate that you only kill 2 animals.
Why not, Nicholas? Do you have any proof that his estimate is false in any way?
The equivalent of 2 animals. I eat the equivalent.
No, because you have to include all of the things you have to include all of the death that is entailed in obtaining those. So you're also including things like, I'm assuming that you're an advocate of like pasture raised beef or whatever.
No, I eat both. I clearly eat both.
Okay.
But I don't, but here's the thing. But if you guys are saying it's totally morally fine to kill all those little insects to kill crops, the same thing with the animal production, right? The same thing with.
Right. So you can't get out of it. Done. We're finished. Shawn Baker wins the debate. These 2 turds, not a single finger hold.
Eating a cow, it's the same thing, right? The same thing ultimately occurs.
I'm calling into question the veracity of the empirics here.
Well, who cares, Nicholas? You can call it into question all you like. If you want to prove it wrong, that's a different proposition. Show us that it's wrong.
So you say 2 animals a year.
But you say it doesn't matter. What the empirics are doesn't even matter. At the end of the day, it's going to be 2 animals plus whatever justifiable deaths are allowed because they're little tiny humans or little tiny insects eating the bugs.
No. Okay, I'm calling into question, like, regardless of whether or not it's on pasture, you have to count all of the animal deaths that are happening on the land that is producing that meat.
No, you don't, because many of the deaths occurring on such agricultural land have nothing whatever to do with the fact that animals are being raised for food on it. You silly boy. You don't have to include that at all. Wrong.
Because it doesn't have to be pasture. It can be a parking lot, right? So you have to count all of those entailed deaths. It's same with factory farming. They're fed grains. You have to factor in all of the entailed death that is produced from the crops.
That's why I don't eat grain-fed meat pretty much. Also because we really don't have that in New Zealand. It's not a thing. All the beef here is pretty much grass-fed all year round.
That it takes to feed those animals. So it's not just 2 animals a year. Like, it's just empirically straightforwardly false that is 2 animals.
No, it's not, Nicholas, because you've just made a false claim that you have to include a bunch of deaths causally into an equation that you do not at all, in fact.
Here.
No, it's 2 animals that are so if you can justify eating a vegan diet and all those deaths don't matter, right? That's what you're saying. It's justifiable. You accept that. You have to also accept the same that goes into feeding the.
What's the argument for that?
You just gave it. It's the same. It's an equivalence. What part of the same do you not understand, Nicholas?
Saying all those.
You say I have to, right? So I take that to be some kind of logical modal claim. What would be the contradiction if I?
Nicholas clearly doesn't have to be subject to the objective reality in which the rest of us find ourselves, Shawn. That's the problem here. You're talking to a boy without the first grasp of reality. That's why basic common sense doesn't work here. That, and it's a sophistic sophistry technique. It's a debating technique to try and throw you off course from the fact that you've actually got them by the throat and there's no way out of it.
Because you're asking me to accept the same argument. You're asking me to accept the same argument.
What would be the contradiction in asking you to accept one and reject the other?
Because the same argument. You're saying that you're saying crop deaths are meaningless. They don't mean anything. It's completely justifiable because
I said they're not rights violations.
Okay, well, the same thing. They're not
it's exactly the same thing. Yes,
violations.
So, like, if your plant agriculture is supporting an animal holocaust, I would consider those to be rights violations because that.
Oh my God, the lack of logic and consistency just gets worse with this pathetic, ridiculous little boy, doesn't it? It's incredible.
That need not happen, right? If your, say, pesticide use or whatever, if your crop production is to support the production of like corn, which I take not to be sentient, that is an entirely different thing.
But that's your opinion on corn. You're not qualified to make any statement on anything whatsoever, remember, Nick? Because you have no qualifications at all. None. Remember?
So it's okay if you eat the corn, but if the animal eats the corn, it's a problem.
Yeah, good. Great logic.
Is that what you're saying?
If you're like raising them to like hang them up by their legs and slit their throats and eat their meat, yeah, sure.
Okay, so ultimately it comes down to that animal at the end, right? That's the only difference, right?
We can actually just cut straight to the heart of this, Shawn. Like we can cut through.
Why didn't you do that at the beginning then, Nicholas, and save us all the last nearly half an hour in terms of this video and an hour or so in terms of my response to it?
Through all of the jibber jabber about the peripheral topics and just cut straight to the meat.
Another technique in trying to get the attention away from the fact that you're being absolutely owned by Shawn Baker right now. He is all over you.
Of the matter.
But let me ask you a question. If you're saying that because I eat 2 cows a year and the average American eats 200 animals a year, right? All of the periphery goes into those animals' production as well. The sheep, the pigs, the chickens. Chickens eat a lot of corn, by the way. Chickens and pigs eat far more crops or far more grain than cows do. That's pretty clear. What you're saying is that me eating less animals is no better than me eating more animals, right? It's just animals in general.
I was specifically calling into question the particular empirical claim that you only.
Okay, fine. Bring it into question. However, have you provided any answers yourself, Nicholas? Have you proved in any way, shape, or form that Shawn Baker is in error with regard to his metrics? No.
Let's ignore the empirical claim. If I eat less animals, is it better?
Are you retracting the empirical claim? Just to be clear.
Shut up. You pathetic little boy. Show some respect for your elders and betters and vastly more qualified. Let him make his point, Nicholas.
No, I'm not. But what I'm saying is, let's.
Well, then I'm going to call it into question again.
Okay, well, fine. You call it into question as many times as you like. You haven't proved it wrong by so doing. It's called personal incredulity fallacy, Nicholas. You should know about this being all about logic, apparently. Go and look that one up and learn something about it.
Fine, call it in question and you can disagree. But if I say I'm only eating the equivalent of 2 animals a year, is that better than someone who eats 300 animals a year? Is it?
Yeah, clearly.
It is. Okay, it is. So I am, as a carnivore, perhaps more. I'm perhaps more.
One second.
Okay,
I just want to clear this up. Eating 2 animals a year or responsible for 2 animal deaths a year, because both of those things are compatible with the same number of animals dying.
Right, and so is eating a vegan diet compatible with causing vastly more animal death, Nicholas, which you are once again ignoring because that's not a rights violation in your opinion, because that suits you. But there's no logic to underpin it or no reason to accept your argument as correct or more correct than anybody else's. It's just your opinion. It's nonsense. It has no value. Just like you, Nicholas, you offer nothing to anybody of any value. And again, if you genuinely really did want to raise the quality of discourse going on in this area, the best thing you could do is to remain silent.
Eating 2 animals a year or being responsible for the death of 2 animals per year. I don't see what the difference is. If you're eating them, obviously they're dead.
Say somebody is eating 100 animals. Say somebody is eating 98 animals a year, and it takes 2 animals to get those 98. And you have somebody who's eating 2 animals a year, but it takes 98 animals to get those 2 animals. Both are responsible for the same amount of animal death, but they're eating 2 different proportions.
Okay, and you're responsible for vastly more animal death than any meat-based diet, Nicholas. Fact. Period.
Animals. So it's like, which one are you claiming? That you're only eating 2 a year, or that
I'm eating the equivalent of 2 animals per year, right?
Yeah, sure, but that's compatible with that entailing more animal death.
From where? From crops you're talking about?
It's just compatible with you.
From where, Nicholas, was the question you were just asked. From where?
It's compatible with there being...
You said it's compatible. The question was, from where?
More animal death.
I'm not the only guy eating stuff.
Acquire those.
I'm not the only guy eating stuff, right? So it gets divided up. You don't just kill an animal. You don't just kill one elephant and then one person eats it.
The issue here is that if the proposition is that you're responsible for less animal death,
he is, then you are. Fact. No 2 ways around it.
Just not evidence for the claim.
There is. In fact. The fact that you've just said there isn't doesn't mean there isn't. There still is.
That you're only eating 2 animals. That's just not evidence for the claim.
If I only eat cows and I don't eat little shrimps and I don't eat chickens, it is very plausible that I'm eating less animals altogether at the end of the day.
Plausible?
Yeah, it's very
plausible, sure, but whether or not it's probable, you're going to need empirics.
Okay, Shawn's being way too polite here, way too accepting of Nicholas's unacceptable behavior at this point. At this stage, I would have taken more control over the situation, Shawn.
You're going to need empirics.
Just me.
To show whether or not it's probable. Plausible, I could just trivially grant. Of course, it's like possible that it's true.
I think it would fall under the realm of common sense to most people. We could sit there. We could sit there.
It's pretty shitty evidence.
We could sit there and obviously.
There you go. Nicholas rejecting common sense outright.
Trace every molecule that I eat and where it came from, as could you, which would be an exercise in futility because no one's going to ever do that. So we have to have some reasonable sense of groundwork here. If you eat only beef, there's less animals probably dying at the end. Not counting crop deaths, which you don't think count, right?
You use the word probable, which is a statistical term. So I'm assuming that you have some statistics to back up that claim. Do you? Yes or no?
Yes, a cow is much bigger than a chicken.
Okay, can I see those statistics?
You need statistics to prove to you that a cow is bigger than a chicken, Nicholas? At this point, Shawn, this is where you end this debate, right here. It is clear that you are incapable of engaging with common sense, Nicholas, with basic reality, Nicholas. We're done here. This discussion is now finished, and I would have ended it right there. But let's see how it goes.
Let's see. A cow weighs something like 1,200 pounds. A chicken weighs something like 7 pounds or something like that.
I don't see how that matters.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Because there's more meat on one animal than the other.
Yeah, but are we talking about total animal death or just how many you're eating in a year? Because I'm not disputing how many you're eating.
If I were to eat a whale, right, that could feed me for probably 2 decades, right? So versus if I ate mice, it's clear to anybody that you're killing less animals have to die to produce that amount of food.
I don't know why you're appealing to like popular intuitions. That's not what I'm asking.
Because they make sense, you stupid little boy.
I'm asking for empirics.
A whale is.
You're making an empirical claim. It requires empirical evidence.
A whale is bigger than a mouse.
If you were raising whales, you're going to need to feed them a lot of animals, right?
But you don't have to raise the whale. You might choose to raise a whale to make it easier to catch the whale and eat it, maybe. But a whale is going to live anyway in the wild, and it's going to eat as many animals as it's going to eat. You're not responsible for those animals' deaths. This is ridiculous.
They're carnivores. It's interesting. It's one of those things. They're going to eat a lot of krill.
But the point is that it's not just about the one whale that you eat. It's about the process of getting the whale to
feed.
So good. Don't farm the whale. Go and hunt the whale. You're absolved. Is that something that we could do with cows? Humans like to do things efficiently. So we are going to collect cows together, and we are going to use animal agriculture to raise those animals. Those animals do need to eat something. Cows will mostly eat plants, not other animals, because cows are herbivores. In case you didn't know. Do you need some empirical proof of that? Cows are herbivores? Largely. Cows will eat meat, if you offer it to them, by the way. That's interesting, isn't it? None of this is actually making any kind of headway or logical sense. This is now just the purely argumentative, trying to win points, which I believe Shawn should have cut off a few minutes ago by saying, right, that's the end. We're done here. You are a ridiculous buffoon. We've showed it quite clearly. Everyone can see it. Nice try, little boy. What's next?
Well, whale kills a lot of krill, and that doesn't matter because it's like they're okay. They're minor, small things. Maybe the krill are eating algae or something. They're killing some crop for some other species. Like I said, it's a very circular argument, but
Wait.
Can we do something then? Unless you want to do something different, Nick. You were about to go on to, you said the meat of the argument kind of thing. I was interested.
Yeah, there's a way to cut straight to the heart of the matter.
Okay,
here.
go ahead.
But like you use the term circular arguments. I wanted to know what you were referring to there.
Let's spend time. Let's get to your meat of the argument because you've got something. Because we're running out of time. I don't want to just around.
So this is a question I wanted to ask you for a while because I think the answer to this question may be more important than any of the empirics that we could talk about with respect to like the health of diet A versus diet B. Say like I don't know, plant-based versus carnivore or whatever. Because you would agree, like if eating Mexicans, for example, granted us like it was like the fountain of youth. If like eating Mexicans made us live to 200 and we were just like youthful for that.
Mexicans have human rights because they are humans. We have agreed upon that. We have communicated that to them. We've communicated that amongst ourselves. It's agreed upon. It's set down in legislation. No problem. Irrelevant argument.
Entire time, you wouldn't sign off on like farming Mexicans to eat, right?
No, because they're human beings.
No, I would not. I think human. Look, let me just put it out there. I think human life is much more valuable than animal life. Okay.
So all I'm trying to establish there is that there are superseding ethical considerations even in your position.
It's nothing to do with ethics whatsoever. Nothing at all. Ethics is not at play here.
Of course.
Okay. I want to know what is untrue of animals, or what is true of animals that is untrue of humans, that if made true of humans would cause humans to lose sufficient moral value such that we would be justified doing the things to humans.
Okay, it's just a ridiculous argument. It does not warrant an answer. It is a mistake to even respond to that with anything other than that is ridiculous nonsense that does not deserve a response. Ethics, nothing to do with it. Nothing whatever.
We currently do to animals, like factory farming them and killing them and eating them.
Yeah, so humans are not animals. They never.
There you go. There's the answer to your question, but it's a mistake to even go there, Shawn. You should not respond to such nonsense, in my opinion.
Will be animals, humans are animals, but the animals will never be human. No, there's nothing you can do to those animals to make them human.
Yeah, that's not an answer to the question, though.
Yes, it is. That's the thing that makes it different. You asked for what the difference is. That's what it is. We don't eat our own species because we've agreed not to, largely. Some people do. Did you know that, Nicholas?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I reject the premise of the question because there's not, if you get let's say a dog started talking to me in English and started to produce literature and could type and do all these wonderful things, it would still be a dog in my mind. So there's nothing you can do that. And
this might be a nitpick. But questions don't have premises. So
see, this is what we're talking about with this ridiculous little boy. This is the level that we're dealing with here. Total, utter, obstinate refusal to engage in the objective reality in which we all find ourselves.
Like, just what is true of an animal that is untrue of a human, that if made true of a
It is not a human. You can't make it a human. Done.
human would justify us slaughtering them for meat. That's all I'm asking. Like, what is the differential property between humans and animals that
One is a human, the rest are not. Still.
justifies the asymmetrical treatment in your mind? There must be something, Shawn.
Yeah, there are different.
But, Nicholas, you're advocating for asymmetrical treatment. That's what your trait adjustment is. So not only are you stupid beyond belief, you're also patently a fucking hypocrite. Wow.
Different species. They're different species.
Well,
I'm a
that's not
species.
an answer
I
to
am
the
clearly a
question.
speciesist. I don't mind that label.
No, that's not. We can explore that, but that's not an answer to the question.
And the question is,
The question is ridiculous.
would I eat another human being? This is what you're
Under certain circumstances, yes, he just said so earlier. Plane crash somewhere.
getting at. And I've already said
No,
in
no,
the
no,
right
no, 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 no.
circumstances.
That's not what I'm getting at. That's not what I'm getting at. That's not what I don't care what you would do personally. I'm asking what you find morally acceptable. Those are two different things.
Well, who cares what Shawn Baker finds morally acceptable and what you maybe don't, Nicholas? What value does that have? How does that change the objective reality in which we still find ourselves?
Right? So all I want to know is what justifies the asymmetrical treatment between humans and animals. That's all I want to know.
It doesn't need justifying. It's a fact of life. It is what it is. When you, at some point, when you come across actual objective reality, Nicholas, you will understand this.
There are inherent differences. There are many differences. There are literally thousands and thousands of differences between me and a dog. Any of them, all of them. All or any of them.
Is any, okay, so wait, you said all of them.
All or
So
any of them. They're different species. They're different critters. I will eat critters. I'm not gonna go eat humans, right?
All or any of them. So if we took a human hair and put it on a cow, they would no longer be morally right to.
No, they're still a cow because you have replaced the rest of it. If they turn into a human
all
being,
or any. You said all or any traits.
See, this is, this is supposed to be point scoring. It's just ludicrous. It's vacuous nonsense. It's pathetic, childlike, schoolboy giggling on the basis of a basically farcical argument. Incredible.
If you covered a cow in human hair, it would still be a cow to me. I'd still eat it. If a cow started talking, I would still eat it eventually. It might not be the first cow.
Wait. Okay. You said all or any traits, right? But what's logically entailed from that is that if you took a human...
This is why you don't respond to the name the trait game, Shawn, because it has no utility, no value in reality or in ethics. It has no moral standing. It's a silly game put together by a pseudo-intellectual with absolutely no qualifications of any kind whatsoever as a kind of gotcha. The way to avoid this is to do in future, is to do what I've suggested here, which is you do not respond to the ridiculous premise in the first place. You say, Nicholas, that is ridiculous. It requires no response from me. I do not have to justify the biological imperative I have to eat the meat of other animals. Period. Done. End of discussion.
Hair and put it on a cow, then it would be ethical to it would still be ethical to like kill the cow. Or if you took a cow hair and put it on a human, then
because it's still a human. It's still a human.
See, there absolutely no value in this ridiculous nonsense, is there? None at all.
Kill the human. That's what's logically entailed. I just want to get clear. That's what's logically entailed from what you just said.
So, no, it isn't, Nicholas. Nothing you said is based on logic of any kind. It's sophistry and solipsism. It's garbage. It's pustulous, excremental nonsense with no value to anybody. It has no value, no basis. It's just noise.
So if, let's say, suddenly you implanted a horn on your head, Nick, there's some people with body modification, people that are thinking, I'm a cow. I would still not eat the human, unless we're in the Andes.
Wait,
and
so
we're
is the
starving,
trait
right?
just being human? Because we can
Yeah, the trait is just
Yes, the trait is being human. Yes.
being human. The trait is just being human. The trait is just being human.
Like a ridiculous thing to say. in
Right.
response
So
to that question, but just
being
human.
a human takes it off the plate for me, right? So there you go.
Okay.
In less extreme circumstances. That's all it is.
Then I have a follow-up question. Please just engage with the line of reasoning. Like, I have a follow-up question.
There is no line of reasoning from you, Nicholas. Reason is alien to you, clearly.
So let's say that we discover a group of beings that were identical to humans in every way except for a cluster of genetics that push them outside of the distribution of Homo. Would it be ethical to just...
So if we ran a bunch of, like, let's say we had a bunch of Homo erectus still running around.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I would be less inclined to eat them. How's that? Do I know that I wouldn't eat them? Like I said, this is a matter.
Yes or
But
no?
I would. I probably would.
This is why you don't respond to this nonsense, Shawn.
Would it be morally permissible? I don't know. I'm not the ultimate authority on that. But
The answer is there is no such group of creatures running around on this planet who are almost human but are not human by the close definition that you're talking about, because Nicholas said identical. That would mean morphologically identical. There is no other morphologically identical species that's not quite human. Ergo, the question is invalid. It's hypothetical. It does not require nor deserve an answer, and you should not answer it.
and I probably personally would not probably eat another Homo erectus. Okay. But I don't, they don't exist. This is a situation that doesn't exist and probably never will exist. So if we talk in fantasy where we can,
you are the
I'm not the
authority.
ultimate.
No. You let me finish my sentence. You are the ultimate.
Says Nicholas. Let me finish my sentence, he says. Again with the glass houses and the rock throwing.
Authority on what you consider okay and not okay. You are the ultimate authority on that. So what I'm asking is,
okay, so I probably wouldn't eat if we found a group of Homo erectus walking around, I probably would not eat them, and I probably would not advocate.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking if you would eat them or not. I'm asking whether or not you think it would be okay if we ate them. The same way we eat cows, string them up upside down, slit their throats, eat their meat.
Again, for me, and again, I don't know what other people.
It's just a yes or no, Shawn.
I can't speak for everybody else.
It's not a yes or no. It's I am not going to engage with your nonsense, Nicholas. Is the correct answer. There is no such group of animals. It is hypothetical. It is pointless. It is not something we need to consider. It has no relevance.
I can speak for myself.
I'm not asking you to. I'm asking for your position, whether or not you think that's okay or not okay.
For me to do.
Yeah.
I probably.
For it to be done. For it to be done.
Now you're asking Shawn Baker to moralize for other people. That's not his place. Any more than it's your place, Nicholas. You have no business moralizing for anybody else whatsoever.
Said you wouldn't be okay with you wouldn't be okay with other people killing Mexicans to live to 200. So I'm asking you, like, would you be okay for it to be done that these beings that are like humans in every way except for a cluster of genetics that pushes them outside of
Okay, they don't exist, Nicholas, still, so your point is still completely invalid. They don't exist.
Distribution of Homo. Would you be okay with them being factory farmed is the question.
If they're the same as humans, no.
Okay, so that's a contradiction.
No, it isn't. Because who's to decide what's within the realms of what a human is and what a human isn't, Nicholas? Genetically. I mean, you'd be stunned probably if you didn't know. If you looked up the amount of DNA shared between us and fruit flies, Nicholas, we're very similar creatures in terms of genetics. However, no reasonable, rational, sensible, sane human being would mistake a fruit fly for a human. Would they? Goodness sake.
Okay, it's a contradiction. Okay, but I'm still eating cows, I'm still eating pigs, I'm still eating chickens. You can come up with some crazy argument that's never going to exist. That's fine, but I'm still going to eat pigs and cows and chickens. They're far enough difference to me.
What is those differences, Shawn? Like, can I just ask you, you're so fine with it.
He said they're not human. That's the difference.
I know, but like, how is that relevant, mate? They still feel pain. They still suffer. They still have desires.
I'm okay with.
Because there is no option. For optimal health and longevity, human beings are obligate hyper-carnivores. Your false ideology and theology suggesting that a person can live with an optimized health span and lifespan on a plant-based diet is demonstrably false, as is the claim that the crop deaths don't matter because they're not sentient. That doesn't work either. There is no logic, no standpoint, and no platform from which you can launch this ridiculous theology and call it rational. It simply isn't. You silly little boys, grow up.
With that. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with them being dead, and I'm okay with them suffering to some degree. Now, I think we should do it in as humane a way as reasonably possible. And I think there can be improvement. I think there can be some improvement. What's that?
Survive? If we could just not do it at all and it didn't need to exist in this earth, all this suffering, all this death, we could still live to the same age.
Yes.
Yeah, but we can't.
Yes, that would be fine.
That would world without it.
Sure, I agree with that. That's fine, but I don't think it will be, and it won't be for me, and it won't be for all the people that are in this audience that have already tried vegan or have already done that, and it didn't work for them. There are countless number of people that have tried a vegan diet and it didn't work for them. Now you'll say, a lot of people say they were never vegan, so
they did it wrong.
Would ask you, James, if 20 years from now you give up veganism, does that mean you were never a vegan right now?
No, I would consider myself a vegan now, but if I was to give up veganism...
Then that means you were never were a vegan. Right? Does that mean you never were a vegan? Does that mean you were never were a vegan?
It just doesn't really make sense to me.
Oh, right. So it's okay for you guys to spout and repeat the same ridiculous nonsense over and over again, which is completely divorced from reality. But when Shawn comes back to you with the same kind of thing, now you're squirming. Now you're upset.
Like, I would give up believing that animals deserve rights.
What if you eat them anyway? But what if you had to eat them anyway for your health? Because we're playing hypothetical, crazy space creature, alien eating. If we're saying that, because there are a lot of vegans that, for whatever reason, it didn't work out for them. They just didn't feel good. They got sick and they had to. And many of these people in this room will verify that because they've done that. Incorporate animal products back in their diet for their own health reasons. And again, it's somewhere where you draw the line. So and I hear a lot of people say those people were never really vegan because they gave up their ethics. And so does that apply to everybody that doesn't die a vegan? Is that so if you don't die a vegan, you were never vegan? Is that a fair statement?
Somebody who feels like they need to stop being vegan, I think they...
How about you answer the question you were asked?
Almost always, 99.99% of the time, could have found a way to be vegan and be perfectly healthy and sort
False, James. It's not possible.
Put their issues out without leading to consuming flesh. That's my understanding of things. But
your understanding is flawed, James, obviously. Completely flawed, because what you just said is untrue.
The question specifically is, were they always vegan? Or were they never vegan? Most people, there's a lot of different types of vegans, I would say, Shawn. And some of them have thought more deeply about the topic than others.
Yes, indeed. And when they have, those that actually have thought deeply on the topic, they go, this is stupid and I'm not doing this anymore. Silly little boys like you and Nicholas are not deep thinkers on anything. You are mindless regurgitators of an ideology based in pseudo-logic, fallacy, and fantasy.
Some just have seen slaughter footage once, thought about it for the moment, started eating a plant-based diet, lived their life. Some people have really given this a lot of topic, like I would say myself, a lot of thought, like I would say myself, Nick, and people probably even more than both of us. And when you've got...
Wrong. False.
To the point where you really understand, I would say, and this is something that I'm trying to understand still through. I hope we have time to discuss a little bit more. When you really understand that they are similar beings, you're saying they're so different. They're a different species. They're different enough that it's fine to slaughter them. I have no problem slaughtering them. Slaughtering them is good with me. I believe that if we had more time to talk about this and discuss this or something like that, you gave it more consideration or you were honest. I don't know if you're being honest. I'm just taking you at face value for what you're saying and assuming.
And now you're being rude again because you can't assail. You can't make any headway whatsoever. So now you just have to be rude to a gentleman who's vastly more qualified than you, is senior to you in years, and deserves your respect completely.
you are, then I think you would come to a similar conclusion, because I think it's extremely logical to see these obviously similar beings with a heart and a brain, with a consciousness, sentience, an experience, an individual experience. They are.
Okay, so plants don't experience things is what you're saying, which is false, James. It's demonstrably false. The fact that you can't conceive of it doesn't make your point of any veracity or validity. It's still invalid.
They are so similar. So when they bleed and when they suffer and all these things that we would never do to Mexicans or to any other humans.
Except in certain circumstances when you would. Remember those little humans eating your crops? You'd kill those, wouldn't you, James? That was okay, remember?
I don't see how you're getting to the point of saying this is totally fine. And so if you were to say to me, in 20 years, if you weren't vegan anymore, were you ever vegan? Well, right now, I am vegan and I believe in animal rights. And
well, then you're an idiot, because they don't exist.
20 years,
your belief in them doesn't make them a reality. They aren't.
The only way I could...
Human rights only exist tenuously, by agreement.
Stop that belief of animal rights. Like, it just can't happen, I don't believe, because it's...
Okay, so you've got no point to make of any kind. That's what I thought.
What information could possibly come out? That there's nothing.
There's no information that's going to come out. There's always... An animal dying it's sad, it's tragic, but it's done regularly. It's going to happen. Ultimately, almost all animals are going to end up food for something at some point, whether it lives out a national life expectancy or it's bred into existence for that. They're ultimately, we all have the same, but we're going to be eaten by worms and insects and microorganisms. We all turn into food at some point, right? We clearly know that. The fact that changes is not that. The fact that changes is your own perception of your health is what changes. What's happened? You look into this audience, almost all of them are older folks in there that have lived into their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they found out that, wait a minute, what I was doing was not healthy for me. It was causing me pain and suffering. I don't want to do that. Now, as a physician, I've taken care of literally thousands upon thousands of people that have suffered tremendously. And it's not good to see that. Human suffering to me is more important than animal suffering. I know people, maybe you're disturbed by that thought, but to me, okay, so I don't want to see humans suffer. Now, if in a fantasy world, everybody could eat chocolate cake, plant-based chocolate cake, and live to 100 and be healthy and robust, I'd be all behind that. But that's not the reality of the world, at least in my world. I see people that have tried various diets. I don't necessarily think carnivore is the best diet for every human on the planet. You'll never hear me advocating that all humans need to be carnivore. I don't think it's practical. I don't think it's possible. Just like I don't think everybody needs to be on a vegan diet, and I don't think it's practical or possible either. You're going to have to grow crops of any sort. You're going to need animals on the planet to protect the soil, so stuff. And so we can all take different...
Recording re-beginning. Sorry about that. Carry on.
It was causing me pain and suffering. I don't want to do that. Now, as a physician, I've taken care of literally thousands upon thousands of people that have suffered tremendously. And it's not good to see that. Human suffering to me is more important than animal suffering. I know people, maybe you're disturbed by that thought, but to me, okay, so I don't want to see humans suffer. Now, if in a fantasy world, everybody could eat chocolate cake, plant-based chocolate cake, and live to 100 and be healthy and robust, I'd be all behind that. But that's not the reality of the world, at least in my world. I see people that have tried various diets. I don't necessarily think carnivore is the best diet for every human on the planet. You'll never hear me advocating that all humans need to be carnivore. I don't think it's practical. I don't think it's possible. Just like I don't think everybody needs to be on a vegan diet, and I don't think it's practical or possible either. You're going to have to grow crops of any sort. You're going to need animals on the planet to protect the soil. So there's reasons for this stuff. And so we can all take different approaches. At the end of the day, and because we're running out of time here, I want humans to be healthy and happy and thriving. And I think the main problem is the fact that we eat this franken, horrible processed garbage that everybody's consuming. I don't think it's the animal products, and I don't necessarily think it's the vegetables, but I think there's something in between that. And if we just realize that, hey, if we got healthy, happy humans that are more healthy, we're going to have a better planet. We're going to have a better relationship. We're going to be able to better to further improve life on this planet. But when we've got everybody that's sick, and you don't have to look around. I don't know where you're at. I know you're like, where are you at, James? You're in like somewhere in Thailand or something like that.
I'm in Brazil.
You're in Brazil now. Okay, well, cool. But if you look around, you can see we're not in a position where everybody's healthy. And the more sick people we have that are either physically sick, mentally sick, we have a worse society. And so we need people with good, strong health to solve these problems. And so that is what I'm trying to do, because every day, and I know you guys don't believe it, I see literally, I spend every day of my life, 7 days a week, talking to people about nutrition, about health, about diet. And without exception, every day I see people whose health is improved by including a lot of animal products in their diet. And that's just my reality. That's what shapes my worldview. And that's why I do what I do. It's not because I like animal suffering and I want to kill as many animals as possible. It's just because I value human life above any other form of life on this planet. And that's just my perspective.
So, Shawn, if you could get your clients to the same amount of health using a vegan diet,
he can't. So again, with the hypothetical question based on the impossible, you cannot optimize human health with a vegan diet. Fact.
Would you agree that would be a better choice?
And no, it wouldn't if ethics and animal death numbers was your informant, because the vegan diet still kills orders of magnitude higher numbers of animals, period.
Potential. Yeah, like if we had no animal death and we could have equal health, sure, you'd sign me up for that. But that's not the reality. That's not my reality.
Again, not reality. So the question is invalid.
Right? You're just not convinced that there's evidence to show that a vegan diet is sufficient.
Because there isn't. Because he understands the literature far better than you do, and I understand it far better than all of you put together and twice on Sundays.
No, I think there are some people that do very well on a vegan diet, but I don't think everybody does. And I know I wouldn't. And I know a lot of the people that I've already...
How do you... I'm more curious, like, do you think that the evidence in terms of, like, the quality evidence we've got, that you're talking about, you've had these one-on-one experiences, you've spoken to hundreds, maybe even thousands of people, and would you suggest that the evidence out there supports your opinion that, I don't know if you say that most people wouldn't do well on a vegan?
There is no evidence one way or the other on cause and effect, health outcomes wise, as relates to any aspect of nutrition according to the high quality evidence. It's all theology, hypothetical situations, and then applying what we believe to be the best approach on the basis of having made a sensible and educated view of that material, and then seeing anecdotally whether our belief is borne out. And it is. And yours is not, James. Still.
Vegan diet, but my opinion would be that most people will do well on an adequately planned vegan diet.
Well, there is no such thing, James.
And I think that the evidence supports that.
Well, you're wrong. It does not support that.
Would you disagree?
Well, I mean,
why don't you come and debate that with me, James? Bring as many bits of literature that you think prove anything you like, and we'll put each one of them to bed over however many discussions it takes to do it. Because it takes about 25, 30 minutes to completely dismember the rubbish that you will put forward as evidence. We need to do it systematically, fully and completely, so that people understand how destitute the material that you think is high quality actually is. Happy to engage with that anytime you like, James.
Evidence. So I guess the question is...
However, we will only deal with a maximum of 3 pieces of your so-called evidence in any one discussion for that reason.
Is why don't we have 90% universal adoption of veganism right now? That was
because it doesn't work.
So healthy in the past. Because I think that most humans, myself included, if we could end all animal death, we would probably agree with that. But the problem is it doesn't happen because it hasn't.
Let him finish his sentence, Nicholas, you rude little hypocritical little boy.
Because it doesn't happen because
people love eating meat, mate.
Why do they do that? Why do they love eating meat? Why?
Because they are biologically designed by natural selection pressures to do so.
Why do you say?
They love the taste of flesh.
Why?
Because they are biologically conditioned to do so, because that is the design.
Why do you think that is?
Up with it.
Why do you think
people find out why? Because it's salty and fatty. And
well, why are we intrinsically programmed to like that then?
It wouldn't matter to me even if we.
But why? But why? Is there an evolution?
It wouldn't matter to me. It wouldn't matter to me
This
because
is
at the end of the day, yeah, it's trivial. At the end
It's not trivial, you silly boy.
of the day, if we
You ridiculous child. It's not trivial at all.
don't need it, like someone might say a similar thing, oh, our canines, you have canines, and point to these tiny little pointy teeth. So,
Oh, sharp pointy teeth though. If anyone ever wanted to make, absolutely certain that this James character has absolutely no credibility whatsoever, there it is. No sharp pointy teeth. Can't be a carnivore.
we should eat meat. We're made to eat meat. I
Yes, we are.
wouldn't care if my teeth don't dictate the actions I take in life, assuming that I can thrive and support myself on a plant-based diet.
That's an assumption that not everybody else has. Guys, I apologize. This has been fun. I do have to go, unfortunately, guys. Thank you for being here. Nick, James, thanks for doing this. Maybe we'll pick up a round 2 down the road. Unfortunately, I do have to go. Thanks, everybody else, for being here. You guys take care, and appreciate you coming on. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Much better if you want round 2. Come and talk to me about it. That'd be better. Because I won't have a time limitation. We'll go through it as long as it takes to prove how destitute and how stupid you two little boys are. Right. I suggest that they probably won't take that opportunity up because, well, we all know why not. All right. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sitting through all of that. Join me next time when someone else will be wrong on the interwebs. There's a lot of it going around. Ciao for now.